I always see videos on how to spot a narcissist, signs your partner is a narcissist, signs you have a narcissist in your life. But I never see videos on how to actually treat narcissism within yourself. So if you feel like you have narcissistic traits, or you just feel like you're a plain narcissist, well, congratulations, first of all, you're self-aware, so that's the first step. But second, this video is going to teach you exactly how to treat narcissism within yourself. And I know this knowledge because I've been in your shoes. We will first cover how does narcissism start so you can see how it evolved inside of you. And the second thing we're going to cover are the 4 steps towards working on your narcissism. So how does narcissism start? Well, there's 2 types of narcissists. There are the pampered narcissist and the neglected child. Now, you have probably seen these 2 types of narcissists in your life, within yourself, or anytime you've ever met a narcissist. Now, the neglected child, let's start with that one, is the child that, of course, when you are little, let's start off with the fact that when you are little, you literally depend on your parents for survival. If your parents don't give you the needs that you need in order, that you need met, I would say, you'll start to think that you're going to die. So you need to meet your needs in some way. So if your parents neglected you, they didn't give you your needs, they never let you feel your emotions, they never let you do the things that you wanted, they always were super hard on you, or they completely neglected you, right? It's either they were super hard on you or they were not hard enough, right? They let you do whatever you want, they just abandoned you, they didn't care about you, right? Could go both ways. That is when you start to meet your own needs, because you see that your parents are not going to meet them, so out of survival, literally, you start to meet your own needs. So you put yourself first, okay? But you don't put yourself first from a standpoint of love, you do it from a standpoint of shame. You do it from a place of, well, if I don't put myself first, I will die, okay? So it's not self-love, really, it is more of a survival thing. It's also rooted in shame. Okay, it's rooted in shame because you don't actually believe that you can have your needs met by somebody else. So you start to almost like push away the world so you can meet your own needs, and you put yourself above everybody else so you can do so. And this is where it gets interesting, because as you grow older, you will start seeing that you put yourself first in conversations, that your entire life is ego driven, that you actually have no clue who you are, because the fake identity of yourself, right, the one that you have built by putting yourself on top of everybody to meet your needs, it ends up being this huge mask rooted in the ego, which is also rooted, that mask, that ego, is rooted in shame, okay? That identity was created out of shame, out of not feeling worthy enough for love, not feeling worthy enough to have your needs met. So this is why you also end up almost like resenting other people and having them become extensions of you. Having control over the people in your life give you a false sense of control over yourself, right? Over that fake persona. So the second type of narcissist is the narcissist that is pampered. They were a pampered child. Every single time they needed their needs met, they had absolutely everything in their disposal to have those needs met. But it was not in a healthy way. It was in a way where it took away their ability to do it for themselves as well, right? So there was no balance between self-love and being, receiving as well. So this is when it starts to become a toxic dynamic, because they expect everything to be handed to them. And that leads to them putting themselves always first, because they were taught absolutely no boundaries between them and another person when they were children. It was always around them. They were the center of attention. So this is another extreme that causes narcissism, pampering a child way too much, not telling them no. Because then they end up stepping on other people and thinking they are more important than other people later on in their adult life. So outside of these 2 types of narcissists, narcissism overall is the extreme of masculine energy, okay? Now, bear with me. There is this law called the principle of duality, which is one of the 7 hermetic principles that make up this reality, okay? So there are universal laws that make up this reality, that make everything around us and make it work, how the energy moves within us and outside of us. And this law, the principle of duality, aka the principle of gender, has everything to do with masculine and feminine energy within us and within everything. And when I say masculine and feminine energy, please do not think of it as sex, as genitalia. We want to think of it as two energies that come together to create everything around you and inside of you. And these are the two energies in which God, Source, the universe, manifests itself through in this physical realm. And every single time you create anything, whether it's a business, art, every single time you think, you feel, everything that makes you who you are and that helps you move in this physical realm is made up of these two energies. So regardless of your sex, you have both masculine and feminine energy inside of you. If you really want to have a better understanding of the principle of gender, check out this video because it covers absolutely everything you need to know about it. But masculine energy, as a recap, is the mind, right? It is the organizer, the order. It is the logic. It is the ego, which is identity, really. Ego is not bad. It is what identifies you from another person, right? If you had no ego, you wouldn't be able to tell me apart from you. You would think that we are one. Because yes, at its core, you wouldn't have any differentiation between the world outside of you and yourself. If you were to eat, you wouldn't even know where to put the spoon because you feel you are one with everything. There's no identity here. So the ego, as you can see, is very important. It's not bad, but we're going to talk about in a little bit when it gets bad and when it becomes narcissism. Anyways, the feminine energy is the heart, the emotions. It is the inner world, right? The subconscious mind. Here in the masculine, you have the conscious mind. Here in the feminine, you have the subconscious mind. This is also the bridge to the mystical, to the unknown. This is why in yin and yang, yin is depicted as the darkness because it is the unknown. It doesn't mean it's bad or it's something negative. No, it is just the unknown, right? It's the inner world. And the yang is the light, which is the conscious, the outside, right? The outer world. Now the thing is that we have both of these energies inside of us. And as you can see, this is exactly what we use in order to function in this place. So when we have a balance between these two energies, that's when life starts to feel like heaven, right? That's heaven on earth. Everything starts to feel better. You're creating, you're living to your potential. But when they go to their extremes, that's when it starts to become toxic. That's when it starts to become hell, right? Hell on earth. These energies at their extremes are the fall of consciousness of mankind, humans. When these energies are at their extreme, you experience hell, and narcissism is one of them. Now, why I say narcissism is in the extreme of the masculine energy? Well, good you ask. As you can see, masculine energy is the ego, right? The outer world, the way that you approach life. It is the action taker, the will. But narcissism is made up of, it's basically ego-driven. And so when you go towards the extreme of the masculine, you start to forget your feminine side, which is the emotions, empathy, the ability to be compassionate towards others. It is the mother, right? Like the inner mother, that's the feminine. So when you go towards one extreme of the masculine, you start to encounter a lack of empathy for others. You start to center yourself, ego-driven, right? You start to be really logical as well. There are, of course, spiritual narcissists out there, but it is, of course, ego-driven, right? So it's ego-driven. There's people who think they're better than other people. They don't see that we're all, connected, which is something that the feminine would do. Now, yes, of course, there is an extreme of the feminine, which is a whole other video. But the whole point is to have balance between these two. So if you're a narcissist, you're at the extreme of the masculine energy, regardless of your sex, okay? And when you are at one extreme, the only key to work on what you're being right now is to implement more of the other side. So if you're a narcissist, you need to implement more of your feminine energy. And as you can see, because of your trauma, you have put your needs way above everybody's. So it is, at the end of the day, a me trauma, right? It's me. mindset, which is the extreme of the masculine. So how do you work on your narcissism? Number one, unlock your femininity. Whether you're a man or a woman, you need to start unlocking your femininity. And one thing that I really want to dismantle in your mind is that femininity is weak. It's not weak, okay? Feeling your emotions is the most courageous thing that you can do. And your femininity is what connects you to yourself, to real self-love. Not the cocky, false self-love that narcissism brings you, but I mean the real self-love, which is not rooted in shame. Okay, so as we talked about, the feminine side is really your emotions. It is your sensitivity, your ability to have empathy for other people, right? It is your ability to connect with yourself, with what you truly are. Your emotions are literally telling you what you want or what you need to work on, right? So emotions are really important to feel, because if you suppress them, you only stack them up in your subconscious mind, and that ends up actually leaking out in your life in different ways. So feeling your emotions is something really important. The patriarchy has told everybody, hey, femininity is weak. It's not weak. The biggest thing they have done to men is kill their femininity, so they never feel emotions and they think they're weak for feeling them, and then obviously that creates narcissists and toxic men, and it has done so in women as well. A lot of women now resent femininity. They feel they're weak if they're feminine, and the femininity in people is really what helps them balance to their spirit as well. Obviously, you don't want to go to a whole other extreme, right? Being controlled by your emotions, that's another thing, but you do want to have a good balance and find what is that balance for you. Anyways, the most important thing you do want to build when it comes to your femininity is your empathy. Your empathy for other people, having the ability to put yourself in other people's shoes, okay? This one is really important because it is part of the feminine energy within you. Remember, one side is the father, the masculine energy, and another side is the mother. Because when it comes to narcissism, you tend to put yourself in the center, right? You're the center of the world. You are the most important thing. You need to step on other people if you don't get what you want, right? And so you don't start to see the damage that you do to other people because you are only thinking about yourself. So empathy is the most important thing you need to consistently work on. So one of the tips to build empathy is to literally, as you're speaking to somebody, they're telling you how their day is, visualize yourself being inside of them and feel the emotions that go along with the words that the person is saying, okay? That is gonna help you a lot in building empathy. Now, the second thing would be moral reconstruction, which is so important if you feel you have narcissistic traits or you feel like you're a narcissist. When I was dealing with that part in my life where I was a narcissist, because I was raised by a narcissist, and I always thought that feeling emotions, being sensitive, basically, I always thought the feminine was very weak. And of course, I also had a narcissistic father, so I dealt with a lot of his mindset. And when I was a teenager, I would do things to my friends and think it was either funny, think it was okay, and I wouldn't see how hurtful they were because my morals were completely upside down. I had not been taught how to be a real friend, how to properly love people, what to not do to somebody. That is not something I was taught because of my childhood. So I didn't really know what was right or what was wrong. And I would only go off my impulsion and my wound, right? That shame wound that created my narcissistic persona. That is something that I would guide myself off of since I was so disconnected from who I truly was, which is, when you connect with your feminine side, you're more connected to your emotions, to your spirit. You're connected with who you truly are at your essence, and then you have your masculine balanced out. But I wasn't tuned into my feminine side. I had repressed all my emotions. And when I did those things to my friends, I just couldn't really understand why they were pissed. I literally couldn't understand why they were pissed. And so as I grew older, I became 15, 16, I started to see what was actually wrong. And I started to put myself in other people's shoes and ask myself, hey, would I be okay with them doing this to me? And the second I realized that I had been doing things to them without their needs in mind, I noticed that my morals were completely upside down. And this is something I've noticed with all narcissists. They have morals that are very different from the regular person, with somebody who's in touch with their femininity, because they are very disconnected from the love they could have with other people. They are disconnected from empathy. So they don't ever think about the other person's feelings or emotions when they do things. So one thing to gain more empathy is to reconstruct your morals. Actually ask yourself, would I like this done to me? Would I do this to a person? And start to abide by those things. Start to pull yourself back when you feel you're gonna do something bad to a person, when you feel you're gonna be doing, something that you shouldn't be doing. Start to pull yourself back from those activities and remind yourself what the correct moral would be in that moment. Now, before we go into the second step, if you're finding this video helpful, make sure to like and save it for later. And if you are truly looking to become your highest self and tap into your true potential through the supernatural power of your mind, make sure to subscribe and also check out my free training below. Now, the second thing would be pattern recognition through awareness. When you are at the extreme of the masculine, you start to control instead of have order. Remember, the divine masculine is order. We want that. But when you go towards an extreme, you go into control. Why do you control? Because when you are a narcissist, or you have narcissistic traits, there is a part of you that is rooted in shame, right? So that you don't let yourself take a look into your inner world, which is the feminine, okay? You want to only look at your external world. So when your external world starts to come out of, your idea of who you are, that identity, that false identity you have built, that you have clung on to because you needed it for survival when you were little, when something starts to come out of that order that you have built, you want to control it, right? You want to control everything in your external world. And this is why when for example, if you have gone into relationships, you have probably noticed you're pretty controlling, or you always try to control things within your workspace, within your friendships. Everything always needs to go around what you want, right? So there's this need for control that is also part of being a narcissist. And it is the pattern of control that you must work on. Now, there's so many different ways that you can control things. Now, that is one of the patterns that we want to watch out for, okay? Through your daily life, right? If something goes wrong, are you going to go crazy, or are you going to sit and take that in and not try to control the situation? It is all about allowing yourself to observe when you are repeating patterns, okay? One of them is control, so watch out for that one. Now, another common pattern is dismissing others' emotions. And you have probably noticed you do this quite a lot. It happens a lot when you're dealing with narcissism or narcissistic traits, because once again, you are at a far end of the masculine, which impedes you from getting in touch with other people's emotions, which is part of, being in touch with your feminine. So you want to ask yourself to observe throughout your day. Every single day before you wake up, and we're gonna do this for all of the patterns I'm gonna mention, every single day before, when you wake up, get out of bed, before that, make the conscious decision, and do this 3 times so you really embed it in your head. Make the conscious decision to observe what you are doing internally throughout your day, okay? So, for example, you wake up, you go to your boyfriend who's, making breakfast in the kitchen, and then he does or says something that is kind of like, makes you feel weird, and then you answer back to him super poorly. And so he tells you, hey, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? That was hurtful. And then you don't really see that what you just said was really hurtful. So for example, let's say you get into miscommunication with your boyfriend or with anybody, right? And you say something hurtful, which usually we tend to do because we let our anger or our needs get in the way of seeing the other person's point of view. Instead of going and wanting to say those hurtful things, or going and dismissing their emotions completely, we want to take a step back when we start to get riled up, okay? When we start to get riled up, we want to take a step back, breathe, and let them know that you will come back to that later, okay? If it's your boss, chill, right? If it's your boss or somebody that you can't leave the situation in that moment, you want to actually take a breather, right? And think before you speak. right? You want to reflect before you react. That is the key here, okay? Because remember, narcissism is a pattern. And if you keep repeating the pattern, you don't become conscious of it, you're not gonna know how to, right, reflect and come back. So we want to always reflect before we take action. And this is why every single day in the morning you need to make the conscious decision and tell yourself, today I will be very, very, very conscious about what I do and how I think and how my brain is working, right? Be very conscious of your internal world, which is your feminine, by the way. This is going to help you connect a lot with your femininity, and become aware of how you express your internal world into your external, right? So another pattern is invalidating others, which actually kind of goes hand in hand with dismissing others' emotions. Invalidation is when you basically tell other person like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way, right? Like this person's coming to you telling you, hey, like I didn't like this, or you did this thing that was really upsetting, and then you invalidate them. You let them know like, hey, you shouldn't feel that way, or it wasn't that serious, blah, blah, blah. You never want to do that with anybody's feelings, okay? Not with yourself either. You really want to actually validate yourself and validate other people as well. Okay, so that is part of actually tapping again with your feminine energy, because when you're validating other people and telling them, hey, like it makes sense why you feel that way, what can I do, right? Or, you know, it's okay to feel that way. I can understand why you feel that way. Like when you start to let them know, like it's not, you're not crazy for feeling your emotions, you start to tap into the part of yourself that is connecting with other people, that is feeling empathy, that can put themselves in other people's shoes. So don't invalidate people. Like actually consciously become aware of when you're about to do it, or when you're in a situation where you should validate the other person's emotions. So another one is numbing of own emotions, okay? And this also, we're gonna talk about validation for yourself in a little bit, but when you are a narcissist, one thing I have noticed with my own journey of getting out of that is that my entire life I was heavily suppressing my emotions. At one point, I'm gonna be completely transparent with you, I thought I was a psychopath. When I was like around 14, 13, I started to notice that I couldn't feel positive emotions. Like I had a really, really big struggle to connect with my emotions. And the only emotions I was able to feel were anger, like very intense rage, right? So that was really the only emotion I could feel. And if not, it was like very shallow excitement, or, you know, that's it. I think that's it. And so when I was 14, I literally thought I was a psychopath, because I was like, oh my God, I have no emotions. Like, and I'm also making very terrible decisions. So I just needed to connect with my emotions. I wasn't a psychopath. I was just very disconnected from my essence. I hadn't allowed myself to feel emotions for so long that I thought I didn't have them. Okay, so how do you connect with your emotions? You need to let yourself feel them. And I mean also the negative ones, okay? And when I say feel your emotions, you need to be conscious of every day when you're feeling emotions. In the beginning, they're gonna be very subtle because you have been suppressing them for so long. And we don't only want to feel positive emotions, you wanna feel the whole spectrum of emotions that come into place, okay? Don't think that you are weak for feeling emotions. You are not, and that is something that usually narcissists have very imprinted in their head, that they're weak if they're feeling emotions, that they are sensitive, that they are being vulnerable. Feeling your emotions is a superpower. It is literally the ability to feel and listen to yourself. So don't tell yourself that you are weak for feeling them, and don't feel like you're weak. Okay? When you feel your emotions, you're actually connecting with your inner child, okay? You're connecting with your inner child, you're listening to them, what do they want, right? So validating yourself whenever you feel any emotion, even if it's rage, is really important. Telling yourself, hey, it's okay to feel this way, right? I invite this emotion in. And another really important part about feeling emotions is that perhaps you should time yourself. So I saw this advice somewhere in the internet when I was dealing with this. It was time yourself throughout the day, like put a timer on for like every hour, and when the timer goes off, you take out a notebook, like a little tiny notebook that you keep with you, and then you write exactly what you feel in that moment. Like don't question it too much, like how does the emotion feel in your body, because you're always feeling something, okay? You're always feeling something, even if it's very neutral, right? So you want to ask yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? What sensations are in my body? How does my body feel? Do I feel tired? Do I feel awake? Do I feel positive or negative? Okay, I feel negative. What exactly am I feeling? Do I feel a little bit rushed? So am I having anxiety? Do I feel a little bit hopeless? So am I feeling depressed? Whatever, right? So you go down like, okay, do I feel good or bad? Okay, bad. But how exactly do I feel, right? So you start to write those things down. And the more that you do this, the more consistent that you are, the more you actually become conscious of your emotions throughout the day. So you're no longer like, oh my God, I don't feel emotions. You are feeling emotions. It's just that you're not conscious of them and you don't let yourself process the emotions. Because the moment you tell yourself, it is okay to feel this way, right? The moment you validate yourself, you invite the emotion at its potential. You invite the emotion in, and that's when you can truly feel it, process it, and then let it go. And that is really important to do in this journey. But until you don't allow yourself to feel the emotion, you don't validate yourself, you're not going to feel like this emotion is very intense, or you may feel like you're not feeling this emotion at all, but you are. It's just suppressed. So this is really important. Another pattern is being defensive. A lot of narcissists, when they interact with other people, since they're only seeing their point of view and they're only centering themselves, whenever somebody starts to express something or talk about a certain thing, it's very easy to think it's about you. And so that can lead to us being defensive. And there's also reasons why you could be defensive. For example, if you are talking to somebody and they're telling you perhaps, that they didn't like what you did, there's part of yourself doesn't want to admit that you did anything wrong because you don't see maybe why that thing is wrong, or there's another reason, but you end up being defensive. And so when you end up being defensive, you end up hurting others because there's a part of yourself that looks at the person's weakest spot, the wound, and starts to try and get at them, right? Try to hurt the other person so you can ease your ego, so you can ease that wound that you have within yourself. We want to stop doing that. That is absolutely not something you would be okay with if somebody did it to you. So when you see yourself being offended by something, we want to take a step back, breathe, and then ask the person why they feel that way, right? Actually try to validate how they feel, see where they're coming from, right? Remember the tip of putting themselves in their shoes, literally like visualizing it. Do that, right? You never want to take absolutely anything personal. If somebody's actually attacking you, you never want to take that personal. You also don't want to let them step all over you, right? We want to remember, we don't want to go towards one extreme. The extreme of the feminine is not having boundaries. You don't want to do that either. You want to have self-love, but you also want to be empathetic and compassionate towards other people. So what you do in the case that somebody actually is attacking you, verbally, psychologically, physically, right, whatever, the moment somebody attacks you, you don't want to take it personal because the person is dealing with their own things and they're only projecting that attack towards you, right? And if you actually did do something wrong, well, obviously take accountability for it. But in this case, if the person's genuinely attacking you, you don't want to take it personally. You want to step back, once again, breathe, and focus on something else, okay? And if you can, try to get away from that situation as much as possible. Another pattern, threatened by other person's independence. Since narcissists have the need to control their outer world because they do not want to look at the inner world, the outer world involves other people, right? The people in their life, their relationships, their friendships, their parents, their siblings, whatever. And they have the need to control that. They have the need to make that fit their idea of their identity. So when a partner or a friend has an independence outside of that idea of your identity, that fits with your identity, with who you are, you start to get controlling, right? Once again, the extreme of the masculine. And so you don't allow people to be themselves because you think of people as extensions of you. And what you really want to notice is why you think that, right? And understand that people are their own person. They are their own individual and they are gonna do what they need to do. Everybody is on their own path and you cannot control their path. By trying to control their path, you're only hurting yourself and you're of course hurting the other person if they don't leave your life. So when you try to control another person's life, you're only taking away from yours. The person is gonna eventually do whatever they want to do. And if you successfully control them, there's absolutely nothing to gain from that. Once again, we're trying to stop being narcissists here, right? So actually make an effort towards seeing that if somebody did that to you, if they try to manipulate and control you that way, that wouldn't be nice. You wouldn't even get a chance at life, right? So be very conscious of how you can affect somebody by trying to control them. And at the end of the day, even if you think it is at their best interest or at their, you want to do them for their own good, you don't actually know that because you're not that person and you're not in their head, you're not experiencing their life, you're not experiencing their avatar, right? So you're not them, you don't know what's best for them at the end of the day, and they need to walk their own path. Understanding people's independence and actually embracing it, right? The fact that we are all independent, you can do whatever you want with your life. They can do whatever they want with their lives. And if somebody is truly meant for you, it will be somebody who their independence is aligned with yours as well, right? And that will be awesome, but it will flow and you will not have to control it into happening. So remember that. And if you don't know what patterns you have, a really great tip I'd recommend you to do is, and also this is gonna help you with being vulnerable, is asking your friends or family members, somebody that you feel in confidence with, to let you know what they feel is one of your patterns. And actually be open to hearing. Do not get defensive. Do not try to tell them, oh yeah, I actually do that because this and that, because you did this and that. No, be open to listening. Be open to hearing. And take notes, keep it in mind, and start to actually notice those patterns within yourself. Once again, you really want to be extra conscious every single day to watch out for these patterns so then you can flip the narrative. So the next step would be healing the inner child. So remember I told you that your inner child is the one that is actually expressing those emotions? Well, your subconscious mind actually holds your emotions. So all of your emotions come from your subconscious mind. And your subconscious mind was created in the first 7 years of your life, okay? Even when you were in the womb, by the way. So what were you in the first 7 years of your life? A child, okay? So your emotions are actually coming from those first 7 years of your life, and they echo throughout your entire life. One thing we really do want to understand is that when you are feeling your emotions, you are literally listening to your inner child. You are hearing those patterns that you have created from the first 7 years of your life. So if you feel a negative emotion, it actually comes from a core negative memory. And if you feel a positive one, it comes from a core positive memory. So you need to let yourself feel emotions. The most important part in connecting more with your feminine side is to let yourself feel, okay? When you let yourself feel your emotions, you end up connecting more with yourself. And your emotions are not supposed to last very long unless you consciously hold on to them. Your emotions are something that you're meant to process and then let go. And that way they don't actually stack up in your subconscious mind, okay? When you were a little kid, you were not allowed to feel emotions. You actually had to suppress them, okay? So this is something very, very, very vital to healing as a narcissist, is letting yourself feel the negative emotions. Validating yourself is the first step towards feeling emotions, and then letting yourself feel it, and then releasing it. Now, if you want to learn more about this, definitely check out my shadow work video with everything you need to know, and then also healing the inner child video, which is going to help you know more on how to work with your inner child. And the last step is stay consistent. You need to commit to bettering yourself, okay? Narcissism is almost like this type of Alzheimer's. I think of it like that, because you want to get better, you can see your flaws, and then your ego literally blinds you again. And it becomes this cycle where you notice that you have been in the wrong, you notice what is going on, and then the next day you are the same person again, right? You become blinded by your ego, things start to, you start to project that part of yourself, you start to take everything to the heart, you start to be defensive again, you start to hurt others, you start to do things that are not aligned with who you truly are. And so you want to stay consistent every single day with these exercises of being conscious of your patterns, right? Working on yourself, healing yourself, working on actually feeling and letting yourself embrace your feminine energy. Commit to balancing yourself, commit to balancing these two energies within you, and I swear to God your life will change, okay? Everything I have stated on this entire video has completely transformed my life. I actually dealt with very, very, very insane guilt from having been the way that I was before and having thought of the things I thought before. And at the end of the day, I didn't want to feel that guilt of being like a bad person, and so I suppressed all of that and then kept being the person that I was, right? Being a narcissist and treating people around me very badly and myself as well. So when you start to actually let yourself feel emotions, even the negative ones that you avoid, when you start to work on being conscious, being vulnerable with your friends, asking them where you are being a bad friend, where you could change, where you could be more empathetic, actually letting yourself be vulnerable in this process is the key, really. And I want you to remember that you were never, ever a bad person, okay? Ever. You were just hurt, and now you're starting your journey towards recovery. And I'm so, so proud of you, okay? Never feel ashamed of yourself. Never feel guilty for the things that you have been, you have thought of. Never feel guilty, okay? Just look towards the future. Remember that what actually makes a good person is their ability to choose to be a good person, okay? Somebody who is, for example, who has only been a good person their entire life, has never ever faced their shadow or even gotten to know it, they're not actually a good person because they don't have the choice of being a good person. Would they be a good person if they got to know their dark side? That's the real question, right? You have gotten to know your dark side, and now you're choosing to recover. Now you're choosing to be a good person, and that's what actually makes you a good person. So congratulations, I'm so proud of you, and I wish you so much love and the absolute best in this journey. If you found this video helpful, make sure to like it and save it for later, and of course, make sure to subscribe if you're really looking to become your best self. I'm Myra Morphy, here to help you align with your highest potential, and I'll see you on the next video.